There is no shortage of reasons why Gen Z feel more lost than any other generation. It is easy to blame the election or the economy for destabilizing an entire generation, but this is true across the board, regardless of which generation you were born into. Gen Z is currently between the ages of 14 and 29, and they're facing the same challenges that every other young adult would: navigating education, choosing a career path, and perhaps leaving home to discover a world of their own. If this doesn't quite sound right, let's talk about the factors real and unique to Gen Z, not just the ones that you've been led to believe. It is easy to ascribe Gen Z to lack discipline, religious morals, or traditional values. After all, these are qualities that have been so far the bedrock upon which previous generations have built their success. What most don't realize is that it did not matter if humanity abided by religious ideologies and traditional family values, or simply derived a shared sense of meaning and purpose from them. The impact itself remained the same. The same traditions have also been the source of the worst crimes committed to humanity. When each generation is born, they are conditioned to the traditional ways and simultaneously confronted with the crimes committed by those very traditions. This creates internal conflict that forces each generation to choose: to succeed by conforming to tradition and become a hero, or rebel against a broken and corrupt system and by doing so become the villain.
You either die a hero or you live long enough to see yourself become the villain.
The great irony of our time is that villains are now celebrated as heroes. Heroes of previous decades were universally admired, such as Muhammad Ali in the 70s, Nelson Mandela in the 80s, and Princess Diana in the 90s. This was a time when we celebrated the greats. Access to new ways of thinking through books and education meant something. We are now experiencing the erosion of information, where access to information is controlled, censored, and sometimes even destroyed. You know this is true when the freedom of speech that previous generations so defiantly fought for is actively reduced to a crime. Between the ages of 14 and 25, the brain is most open and trusting as we leave home and go out to explore the world for ourselves. Far too often, this critical window of self-discovery is sabotaged by poisoning the mind with hard drugs, alcohol, and excessive partying. Add social media into the mix and you have mastered the art of poisoning the mind. This is also the time when we're most distant from our role models and parents. Most parents are oblivious to the drastic and destabilizing changes taking place and the unnoticed thoughts that happen inside a young person's head that lead to depression, anxiety, and substance abuse. It is no coincidence that the critical window when the brain is most open and trusting is also the time when we are most lost and confused. If you're living reactively and desperately trying to keep it together, it is inevitable that trouble will follow you. To break free requires a complete reconstruction of the mind to unlock free thought. If you want to know how I did it, you can read my book Hidden World. Unfortunately, despite what anyone will tell you, including myself, there is no right way of doing this. You will encounter many false promises, but in the end, you must believe in yourself enough to get out of your own way. When a generation is assaulted with mixed messages, it is only natural to disengage and check out.
The sharing of biased and false news
has become all too common on social media. More alarmingly, some media outlets publish things that aren't true without checking facts first. Unfortunately, some members of the media use their platforms to push their own personal bias and agenda to control exactly what people think, and this is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
There are three major ways that messages have been weaponized to render an entire generation obsolete even before they had an opportunity to succeed. The internet has become a factory for the manufacture of alarmist messages. Inflation, housing crisis, food shortages, overpopulation, AI-driven job losses, climate change. All of this add up to a generation of mass disengagement. The internet used to be a place where people went to escape from life's problems. The evolution of this collective coping strategy born out of frustration, resentment, and pain now exists as the meme. The word meme was initially proposed as cultural transmission of ideas and beliefs as opposed to genetic transmission from parent to offspring. There is no denying the humor and efficiency with which memes can communicate. Even short-form videos are now derivatives of memes. By neutralizing the shocking state of affairs into jokes, we are disabling any sense of regard, responsibility, or action and simply doom scroll and laugh at the absurdity to ease the pain. Any other generation in the current age bracket as Gen Z would be mortified by this madness and immediately mobilize for social justice. The incoherent resentment in Gen Z is so great that any mention of world peace from the wrong side is enough to incite the next world war. The us versus them mentality means that if Trump was pro-oxygen, people would start suffocating themselves. Doom scrolling has pioneered a culture that is information poor, reactive, and morally underdeveloped. There is no longer a need to develop intelligence when LLMs can do the thinking for you. When we remove intellectual challenges, what need is there to learn, grow, and improve when a choice has already been made to not understand? What is the point when the world Gen Z was promised does not exist? Fortunately, the solution is rather simple. The promised world does indeed exist and has been enjoyed by all generations prior, but this is not where Gen Z cares to look, a world outside the internet. If you want to learn more about how to access this rather mythical real world, you can start by watching my video on digital minimalism. The success metrics of previous generations are villainized. Cancel culture will self-combust with outrage at any attempt of even mentioning this, but the demographic that has been hit the hardest are men. There is now a glass ceiling that immobilizes male behavior, especially in a professional environment. The best depiction of this is in the Trump-Zelensky conversation. Throughout the conversation, Zelensky uses manipulation, gaslighting, and victimhood tactics to position himself as someone who has been wronged.
That's not cool. But that's how it is when you play with friends. So when I ask you to show us all your
they are mine. They are my
dragon cards.
I received them for Christmas. They are my
Listen,
dragons.
Volodymyr, if you keep going like this, you know what? Nobody will want to play with you anymore, and that includes Vance
You never
and me.
want to let me play with your Xbox.
You know why you can
How
play
do
with
you
the
think
Xbox?
that makes me
There's
feel?
some games that are too violent for you, and
I'm
you're
old
still
enough.
too young.
It's not that
There's
violent.
too much
I'm big
violence.
now.
Yes, it's
I
violent,
don't
and you'll
even
end
need
up
the
having nightmares
nightlight to
again
fall
and
asleep at
crying.
night.
This victimhood culture is glorified and celebrated, whereas in previous generations, this behavior would be intolerable and immediately shut down. Trump demonstrates traditional male behavior by simply cutting through the BS with righteous anger. This is how men traditionally communicated. Regardless of which side you're on, you cannot deny that this is a masterclass in negotiation. You may not get it now, but a lot of things won't make sense, at least not until you climb high up the ranks and are faced with hard decisions for yourself. Direct communication from men has been pushed into the fringes to the point where people lose their mind if confronted directly. I experienced this firsthand when I spoke directly without sugarcoating my TEDx talk and got banned for being offensive. The only way for modern men to survive is to behave like a woman and not upset anyone. This is the unspoken glass ceiling that modern men must now navigate. Instead of enjoying the psychological strength that comes from a strong will, Modern men have become half-breeds, basically behaving like women trapped in men's bodies. What's more concerning is modern men will fight against masculine qualities as if it was a crime to even exist as a man. What we are witnessing is a global homogenization of single-sex behavior. The natural driver for male motivation was to secure the required resources to qualify for raising a family. Under the current climate, this is no longer true. The dating market is disproportionately skewed towards women, and the barrier to entry is so high that it disqualifies 90% of men. What used to be a natural progression of getting a job, getting married, buying a house, and raising kids has now become an impossible task, as each one of these tasks are negatively geared towards men. This has become the cornerstone of the Doomer generation that sees little to no reason in engaging traditional pursuits. The extinction of man, family, and community has led to the most sinister control mechanism yet, the erosion of belonging. Psychology Today reports a staggering 73% of Gen Z feeling lonely, with an alarming 30% unsure of how to even make friends. The breakdown of the family unit, instant messaging instead of in-person connection, and making a living online has outcasted an entire generation into remote existence. The critical window that defines the formative years of Gen Z also happened during the height of the stay-at-home crisis. The oldest among Gen Z were only 23 years of age when the world was locked up, leading to an irreversible impact on the social structure. Cancel culture, in combination with the dilution of masculine qualities, has resulted in digital natives finding unity, support, and a sense of belonging in fictitious disorders. Perhaps the best-known example of belonging generated through fictitious disorders was the sudden avalanche of TikTok tics between 2021 and 2022. I detail this phenomena in my TikTok and brain health video linked in the descriptions below. Blind belonging as a substitute for real connection is nothing new. This duty was initially the domain of religion. The rebellion against religious crusades that defined the colonial era created a monumental gap, sensed simply as the absence of God. The result was an explosion of false religions, known more commonly as woke culture. To be clear, religious crusades were the OGs of cancel culture, and woke culture thrives on the same scare tactics of blind belief through the erosion of critical thought. Even traditional institutions who were once the arbitrators of truth and reason now actively suppress legitimate points of view. The criminalization of free speech literally defeats the purpose of safe spaces. A soulless, safe, and sanitized world where empathy is exploited because people would rather keep doing what is wrong than appear to offend anyone. What we are seeing is psychological warfare at an unprecedented scale. This includes the use of alarmist existential threats to psychologically immobilize people, the criminalization of questioning the authority as a betrayal to groupthink, using love bombing and hospitality to lure people into a false sense of belonging, and the silent descent of man that allows this culture to self-reinforce with zero pushback. You have to conform in order to belong. The only way out is to not be afraid of the truth. Rest assured, there is a movement towards traditional ways. There is a growing interest in older analog technologies that is fun and exciting instead of being overbearing. There has been a shift on social media platforms towards community notes instead of blind censorship. All of the lies are being exposed as empty psychological threats that does not warrant your anxiety. We literally have a meme coin exposing government corruption. How much more ironic does it get? Gen Z is better positioned than any other generation to realize the overcorrection and misgivings of previous generations and how poor morals and standards set us up for failure. Millennials without a backbone are now paying the price for their mistakes. The good news is that it's not too late for Gen Z. You have your entire life ahead of you. It is now your move.